Welcome, everybody, to Wisdom Heart Foundation and an interview series that I'm doing, interviewing people all over the country as I come across them to see where they are in their life, what they'd like to share with their experiences and what's going on right now in the world, and how they feel they can contribute to humanity at this time. So, today's interview is with Rain, who is a friend of mine I met just a year ago, and she has very interesting story to share, and I'm excited to be able to get into this interview. I've been looking forward to it for a while now, and hear all the things that she has to share. It's really good for young adults especially, but everybody can benefit from the wisdom that she's gained already in her few short years. And we'll get into that
Mm,
as well. So welcome, Rain, to the program.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy that we get to do this. I know we already rescheduled once, and it's all in divine timing, so I'm ready for it now.
It is. I'm ready to. Actually, it worked out really, really well. It always seems to. I get
Yeah,
this type of stuff all the time, and I'm really flexible and adapt really easy for. So for me, it's really easy, and so I'm happy. It worked out perfect as always.
yeah, yeah.
So let's kind of like get into this right away because I'm really excited to really dig deep in everything into this interview. But I want to go back first before we go forward and kind of get better idea of what your life was like growing up as a child, when you recognize that you had these spiritual urgings or insights that started coming to you, what any catalysts that happened that had you helped you to shift into where you are now. So let's start at that point. I don't know, let's go back before you were even 15.
Oh. Yeah, let's do it. What an adventure. It's funny because I've been having dreams about like my high school years every night for the past 2 weeks, which is it's been so interesting. Um, Yeah. So how to sum up all those years and as efficient as possible. I grew up very in my own world. So now I label it as depression. At the time, I wasn't aware of what I was going through. Um, but lots of suppressed emotions, lots of confusion around emotions. I didn't have emotional literacy. I didn't have any body literacy. I didn't know what sensations in my body meant, whether they were emotional or physical. Um, and I was kind of just living in a habitual state of anything that came up, I would suppress it or do something to escape it. So that was my normal.
Could
And
I ask you something before we go on there? Because you just hit on a point there that I'd like to dig into a little further.
yeah,
When you said you escaped it, how,
mm,
because we all had our way of escaping the reality that we were living in as a child and all. And so how did you escape it?
mm. It's interesting to ponder about how I escaped it as a child because now it's pretty clear that my biggest escape is work. Or like since I've been kind of like high school and older, it was like school and work. When I was younger, I don't think my escapes were always negative. It could be like playing or like I'd build Legos a lot, just being in my own world of like things that I could do. Um, I did art, I danced. So those were, I guess, positive coping mechanisms without me even knowing it. Um, and then progressively it got more into like work. So I was really into school and getting things done and research. Um, like if a problem came up, even if it wasn't a negative problem or just like a question, I'd just dive super into it and I'd figure it out. And um, learning was such an escape. I loved learning and I could just be in that for so long. And looking back, I realized that that kept me out of sitting with my emotions or sitting in the present with my body and what was actually going on.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. Everybody has a different way. Yeah. For me, it was
Yeah.
meditating. I would just go
Mm,
into a zone, and just stay in there for hours just
Mm,
to escape. Uh,
yeah.
so everybody has a different way of doing that. So, I mean, and there are some people that use drugs to escape what they're really feeling. A lot of people use a lot of different methods of escaping and connecting to their emotions, their feelings that they're having inside, and they just, I guess, shutting down and not connecting with them because they just don't know how to handle them, or you know there's lots of different reasons. But yeah, that was really good
Yeah.
because you did have all these creative skills that were already available to you that you could really tune into a lot more. And so that, yeah, that was definitely a great escape. I was sitting
Hmm.
in nothingness and you're creating stuff, so that's
Well,
cool.
I would sit in nothingness a lot. I like that you brought that up because it's sparking my memory of like, what did I actually do? Because it was never just one thing. Like, I always have so many different channels. And as a child or throughout my entire life growing up, I would always switch what I was doing. So I had my creative outlets, but I'd also sit and I wouldn't call it meditating, but I'd just escape inwards. I'd sleep a lot. That was a big escape. I slept so much. I would sleep like 12 hours almost every single night. And sometimes I would sleep through the day. Like I would go to sleep one night, sleep all night, sleep throughout the entire day, and sleep the next night. And I actually just skipped a day of my life. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So that was a more, I guess, negative um, escape method. And then I had like a phase of like technology and memes and like video games and scrolling through social media. So that was a more not super beneficial one too.
Okay, all right, all right. So let's take it up to when you had decided that I want to go and travel more and find programs that will allow me to use my creativity in other ways and connect with people
Mm.
in different ways and all. What triggered that and when did that start?
So I believe my will to travel was actually a will to escape. Because I didn't want to be where I was, whatever that meant for me at the time. I just wanted to be somewhere else. And that sparked this inspiration to want to travel, not knowing that deep down it was like I just didn't want to be where what I was feeling. Um, so I went online and I researched programs for traveling and studying abroad in high school, which is like not as common of a thing. A lot of people do it in college, but I wanted to do it in high school. Um, just because I had like so much draw to leaving, going somewhere else, experiencing something different. And I researched all the programs on pages of Google. I opened every single one, I read them, and I found a few through the government, ironically, that were funded by the US State Department. And they were completely free or funded, paid for. And I was like, oh, this is it, because I knew that my parents weren't going to fund something like that. So I was like, if I do it, I got to figure it out myself. So I applied to them and I didn't really know about like culture. I didn't really know about the rest of the world much. I had mini trips um, with family, or I went like on a group trip to Israel for a bit, and they would just give me these glimpses of a different life. And so I knew that there was more than what I was living in my hometown, in my room, in the comfort of what I knew. So I applied to the programs and I got into one to go to Germany and was like 100% no way, I'm not doing this. I knew that everything was about to change. I had to drop out of my high school in order to do it because they didn't want to give me credit, even though it was government funded scholarship. And I didn't know anything about Germany. I didn't know any German. It changed everything. That is the point in my life that I usually tell people, like, that's where my journey began, because they kind of just dropped us in Germany with a family, a local German family. We went to local German high schools. and we're living a German life. And it was like reality breaking because everything is new and you got to figure so much out. It's so much like immersion. And the biggest thing was just like, I'm not living in the environment that I've known for the past 16, 17 years. Like everything's different now. I don't know any of the people. I don't know the ways they do things. I don't know like how their showers work. Like everything was weird. And so it just like shifts your brain of like, oh, we kind of got to start over. Like we're new here. Everything's new here, which means you don't really have to like hold on to all the things that you knew before. So it provided me just this huge perspective of a life outside of what I knew.
That's a drastic change.
Hmm.
There's nothing subtle about that at all, especially when you're
No.
like 16, 17 years old and you're telling your parents, I think I want to go to Germany and finish school there. Or even the fact that I have to drop out of school. You
Yeah.
have to drop out of school? What do you mean?
Hmm.
How did they take it?
I kind of kept it on the very down low until I got accepted. Like I think they knew about it because I think they had to sign something like when I applied, but it was not really like a big conversation until it was like I got accepted to this thing. It's fully paid for. Like you can't, I was kind of like, you can't tell me I can't go. Like I set it up so that I don't need my parents to do anything. Like, I mean, I think again, they did have to approve it. But they're pretty supportive in general. And that's why I knew I had to apply to something that had like the funding and had everything organized because I didn't want to expect that from them. And so yeah, there was kind of no reason for them to say no. And it was through the government. It was like if they're in the system, which my dad's pretty out of the system, my mom's in the system a little bit. Like dropping out of school is kind of radical in terms of the system. But I'm like, okay, but this is government. Like if you're in the system, you can't deny this like government supported and created program. Like so I kind of manipulated the system using
Right.
the system.
Okay. All right, but it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
So once you got there to Germany, did they speak English as well, or did you just have to learn German like really quick?
Uh, some a lot of Germans do speak English. I had two host families. My first host family didn't really speak a lot of English, and even if they do, they really emphasize through the program to not speak English. So they do that on the host student side. Like they tell us, like, don't speak English with your host family. Don't go into your school and just start talking in English to people. Like they want you to immerse yourself. So they really tell you that like a lot and they give you different tips on how to go about that. Um, and then they also tell the host parents to like try as much as you can to not speak in English unless something's like really needed. But we didn't really speak in English. It was the most immersive experience I've ever had. And it's kind of set a foundation for like what immersion is and how impactful it is because I learned that language so quickly. And I don't know what fluent is because it's a spectrum. And for me, I would say that I was fluent within 3 months. Like I was speaking and having conversations, normal conversations, some deeper conversations consistently at 3 months. It wasn't perfect. I didn't know everything. I still don't. I don't know everything in English, so we never can. But at 3 months, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking in German. I'm dreaming in German. It was like I can speak German, and that's that.
Yeah, conversational German. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
crazy.
Perfect, perfect. And you were over there and visited some other countries while you were over there, didn't you?
Yeah,
And how
I
long did you
visited.
stay over there?
8 months. It was supposed to be a year. We got sent home because of COVID, which was like heartbreaking, also reality shattering. So we had to leave within 48 hours. We had to leave our entire life we just built in 8 months. And we had to pack up everything and fly home. Didn't have time to say goodbye to people. And then back to the States, back to my home where I was in that comfort for 16, 17 years. And I was like, whoa, mortal.
Right, exactly. But if we look at everything that goes on in our life existence and everything we create, we draw to us and everything. So obviously on a collective level,
Mm,
we created this massive pause globally.
yeah.
So humanity itself could take a breath. So you were part of that. But
Hmm.
before you had to dive into that part of life, you were able to create this experience
Hmm.
of understanding other cultures in other parts of the world that you were able to bring back home with you.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
really must have how would you say that might have changed your life a bit? How have you used those tools that you learned, and how did they feel in moving you forward in really living the experience of being adaptable and being
Mm,
able to change in such a short period of time to a whole new culture and all, and then bringing that back home with you? And how did you apply some of those things to where you've been since then?
mm. I just
A
want to say
lot,
I
a
love
lot there, isn't it?
I love it. These are great
I do
questions.
ask complex questions.
It's perfect. Yeah. We don't do the superficial around here. Um, I do want to mention that coming back to the States was a culture shock within itself because I got so used to the German culture. That was my immersed life at that point, that I then came into a new culture, whatever it was old, but it was new for where I was at, and had to relearn everything the American way. And it was like, oh my gosh, like the showers work this way now. Like you had to switch my brain back. And switching back to English was so wacky within itself. I was like, I want to speak in German. Um, but bigger than that, like you mentioned, it's like this adaptability of, whoa, everything changes within a moment, however long that moment is. How do I show up in this new way? And with those changes, for me, there's always an element of grief, of truly taking the time to let go of what has been left in order to make the space and accept what is the new. So grieving all my friends when I went to Germany, my lifelong friends, like we had the same group growing up for so long. They've been in my dreams for the last 2 weeks. Um, Having to accept that like I'm leaving them and I'm leaving this life, I'm leaving my animals, um, and really create that space and then going to Germany so that I can just soak things up. And then having to do the same coming home, since it happened within 48 hours, we didn't have any notice before that. It was like, you have to leave. We booked you all flights for tomorrow. And so I had to grieve throughout that process. Like I didn't have that preparation time. So coming home, it was like, okay, adapting to a new environment while also going through that grieving process, that acceptance, that denial, all those elements of it, and really feeling it, really having to embody it all so that it wouldn't be suppressed and things could actually change. I could actually drop into my new reality in the States again. And I've kind of realized throughout my life that I have a really beautiful relationship with grief. And it's cool to see, like, from this question, how having these experiences has shaped that because I feel really in love with the process of being able to grieve things and let them go in order to make space for new things. And it's happening all the time, especially when people travel, especially when you're an entrepreneur or you're just on the growth journey in general and you have to grieve all these layers of yourself. And it doesn't always have to be this like super heavy grief, but it kind of just becomes this process of shedding and accepting and allowing things to be released so that you can step into the new version and then step into the new version. And then it happens kind of over and over and over again. And so I'm really grateful that I had those practices with like massive change and really radical change on bigger levels so that I can now take that into my life now, so that each layer of my growth, I can just implement that and be like, oh yeah, like I know how to accept where I was, accept that things are changing, embody those feelings, and then let whatever needs to go, go, so that I can make space for the new and just adapt over and over and over again.
Oh, that's an amazing answer. I really like that a lot. Um, it gives a testimony to your generation that has come in now at where you're at, the more evolved being that has come in with this ability to be so adaptable, so easily flow from one thing to the next and not get attached into past events and hold on to them and
Mm.
try and drag them into your future, your present and your future and all. I really like that a lot. And I think there's a lot of lessons in that, and it's very deep. it,
Yeah.
uh, it really is. And it's the timing that your generation has come to is just so perfect because we are really on that edge of this quantum leap in consciousness. And to me, it feels like that your generation is the generation that will take all the wisdom that you can get from the previous generations. And I'm previous. um, but you can take that and you can really bring it into the current moment, you know, take the wisdom from it and not the stories from it, and then just move that into the future. It's like I was thinking about this earlier. I must have knew we were going to have this type of discussion because I was thinking about it earlier about how your generations are the way showers of what's to come, where we're at right now, what we're moving into, clearing out new pathways, um, and new ways of even traversing this journey in with ease and grace.
Mm.
And so easily adaptable in every little turn and corner and not stressing out over it. It's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
know what's ahead. It's like,
Yeah.
forge ahead. We don't care what's ahead. We just know we're going there. Um,
Hmm.
and I really like that a lot. And I think that's what draws me to the younger generation now, is
Mm.
because I have always thought that way myself. Being a leader, one of the first waves coming in and helping to shift this and everything. So um, I'm really excited to be able to learn more from your generation on
Mm.
how to be more adaptable and how to let go of storylines or let go of past experiences and recognizing that those experiences took you to a certain level where you're at now. And now it's time to let go of that experience and be
Yeah.
present in where you're at right now so that you can create the next experience that you want to have in whatever timeline that looks like. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. And it brings me back to the meditation that you created. And I don't think I told you, but I started listening to it like every night after you left. And it's so great because you said something during our last conversation when you were here at the farm about similar to what you just said, like when we take the wisdom forward with our hearts and release the stories, we don't actually have to go into that process of, for example, like I was mentioning, the grief. We don't have to actually go and like feel all these heavy things in order to go to the next level. And on the other hand, we don't have to rationalize it all
Mm.
because we have our emotional sides, our logical sides. We don't have to like sit and figure out, okay, what am I releasing? Like, okay, what do I do to do that? How do I do this? We don't have to get super emotional or super logical. We can actually just have faith and surrender to the process of, I'm just taking this wisdom. It's already in my heart, it's already in my vessel, in my timeline. All I have to do is move forward and surrender. I don't have to know what's next. I don't have to know what's happening right now, even. I just have to keep going. And like it actually gets to be that easy, which is so crazy. And I have to remind myself that sometimes too, because I love grief at times and I love the rational mind that's like, okay, but sometimes you just gotta step forward and let it happen.
Yeah, I'm learning that more and more all the time. Just surrender and allow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's great. So bringing up to, I guess, the timeline now would be more like how you got to Florida, the
Mm,
magical things that happened once you got to Florida, and where you're at right now.
mm, perfect. So I came to Florida on a whim, so to say. Really, like the message was telling me I was being called to Florida so much. Um, after Germany, I started doing my own business stuff. I decided I didn't want to go to college because living in a life so radically different and learning through immersion, I was like, I don't want to go back and sit in the classroom for 4 years. Can't do it, won't do it. Dealt with some backlash from that, but it was my decision. So I knew it would work out. Came back to the States, started exploring different jobs and different passions and just figuring out like who I was, what I wanted, what I enjoyed, and how I could live a life in a way that was in alignment with that. And I lost a lot of people along that journey because my lifelong friends all kind of stuck together and went to college. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So I'm over here and just had to create that path for myself. And I started some businesses. I was doing pet care, trying a bunch of random little things. And then got into like investing stuff and just like building my business without knowing that I was building a business, which is super cool because now I'm like, wow, I like have a brand and a purpose and a mission, and I'm actually super clear on those things. And I wasn't like intentionally doing that. Um, and then I still was at a point then where I felt like something was missing or something was wrong. Like I was like, there's something else, but I'm not sure what yet. And I kept getting these messages or just like hearing things in my mind about Florida. And I was like, why do I keep thinking about Florida? Like, I don't really care about Florida. And I was looking in West Virginia for properties, and that's where we met. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to West Virginia. And something just kept coming up, like Florida. And I was like, okay, I think I need to go to Florida. It got super clear. Um, so packed up all my stuff, drove down here, didn't really have a plan, brought my partner with me. Glad that like he's surrenders to the process too. And he's like, yeah, I'm here for the ride. And um, we kind of bounced around at a few places when we first got here. And then beautiful, synchronistic calling brought us to this farm. Some random lady sent my number to some other random lady who then sent me this opportunity to manage a farm, and I am not a farmer. I never would have identified as a farmer. I am our earth warrior, but ironically, like I've never been that good with plants. I would kill all my succulents. So I was like, I don't know about this, but she like sent us this document of their vision, their mission, what they're doing here, and it said that they were looking for an individual or a couple. So we were like, what the heck? And it listed all the things that we were passionate about and that are passionate about. Um, for me, it was like the investing, the real estate investing, setting up like glamping and working with the land and then hosting events and doing like management organization. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love all of that. And then on the other side, it was like doing a nursery and like growing the plants and working with herbs and doing like medicinal products. And my partner was like, oh my God, like those are all the things I'm doing. So we were like, this is unreal, like, so magical. Came out, met them, so much alignment, and we just started working together. Like it was so easy. And so now we live here. It's a 10-acre permaculture farm, and we're helping them really organize and launch their business, which is multifaceted, as are we. So it's great. We're doing events. We have a completely chemical-free nursery with native and edible and medicinal plants and herbs. We have medicinal herbal products, community building, volunteer opportunities. There's 2 gardens and a huge food forest. And there's just so much abundance, so much collaboration, so much opportunity here. It's been so beautiful. And it's brought me back huge full circle to immersive learning. And this is the first time I've been in this state again since Germany. And it's been so amazing because I'm like, wow, I'm like talking about plants that I've never even heard of before. Like I'm having conversations and then I observe myself and I'm like, wait, I know that. Like, I'm not sitting in the classroom learning it. I'm just being here. I'm like working with the stuff with my hands. I'm having the conversations and it just kind of sponges in. And so, like, again, full circle with like adaptability, like adapting to a whole new environment, a whole new culture, a whole new world. And that has its challenges because you have to release things, you have to shed and make that space. And it's just been a really beautiful journey. I've been learning so much, and I get to work on my own business alongside of that, which is the Earth Warrior and the tribe and all the stuff I'm doing with that, with my arts, with sustainable investing. I'm working on getting like some properties to do demonstration sites for my mission, for my own brand, and that's super exciting. It feels super real here in Florida. Um, yeah, and then the coaching and the healing work, of course, and it's just like all come together into one moment, one space. And it's like, I'm still processing it every day. I'm like, wait, what? This is real. This is here. That's crazy.
Wow. It is crazy. Yeah, I really like that because here you are again. It really is like going to another country again because you're learning
Yeah.
another whole new language, the language of
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
And it really, it's going to, you'll make the connection between how nature adapts all the time
Mm-hmm.
to its environment and how your whole microbiome, your whole inner world, and
Mm-hmm.
even in your causal bodies and everything, have to constantly adapt and adjust to the new world that they're in as well. So you be able to make that connection between our development as evolved human beings, spirits being human is really what I
Yeah.
rather call it. Spirits having a human experience, um,
Mhm.
and adapting to another level because you're connecting with nature itself, and nature adapts all the time.
Yeah.
And nature goes through grief. Nature doesn't really grieve and all. When it loses all of its leaves in the fall, nature doesn't grieve the loss of the leaves. It just lets the
Mm-hmm.
leaves drop away, and then it
Yeah.
prepares itself for what's to come in this spring. By most of its energy, somebody took a picture of trees at different times, different seasons of the year, and found out that trees are most energetic in the wintertime.
Mm.
All their energy in the wintertime, as we think about in the wintertime, going in our cave.
Yeah.
But really, what nature does is it uses a lot of that energy in the wintertime to prepare itself for the spring because it needs
Mm.
all that energy to put those buds out in the spring and create life again on the outer part of the world.
That makes a lot of sense. Like summer is kind of like self-sustained. It's cool because
Exactly.
I'm living in the seasons right now. I've never worked seasonally, but this job is so seasonal. Like we just kind of got comfortable coming into this space, getting into the groove of everything. And now we're moving into summer and everything's different. And it's like, wait, what? Like, as managers, especially too, it's like you learn the business and now we have to learn a whole new business for summer while also preparing for a whole new business in the fall. Like, it's so mind expanding. And I've been doing a lot of like internal seasonal cyclical work. Um, I started that like the end of last year. So like the menstrual cycle, and it's literally 4 seasons, 4 internal seasons of the womb. And so for me to open that whole channel and start living cyclically in alignment with my own cycles, and then be dropped into this space where it's like, oh, but don't forget about the greater cycles. And then there's cycles beyond that, and then there's cycles smaller than that. And it's like, oh, there's so many rhythms, there's so many systems, so many cycles going on. And you actually just get to work with them all. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Wow. how do I was looking at some notes that you had sent me because I asked you to send me some notes to make sure that we cover what's most important to you and all. And I was reading through the notes and I'm going, yes, that's where I'm at. Oh, that's what I'm interested in. I'm in. So, so
I
we've
love
got
that.
community here and connections for one thing and collaboration for one
Hmm.
thing. Um, I know what that means to me. What does that mean and feel like for you?
Mm. Yeah, there's so many layers to those elements. The first layer for me is like the kind of inner circle of community, like your kind of tight-knit people, the people you can really rely on. Um, in my mind, that's usually like people you see more often and go to when something comes up, whether that's like something you're happy about and you want to share it with that person or something that feels difficult and you need to lean on someone and like they're there. And I've come into a time of my life where that inner community is really so much more valuable than what it used to be for me because I used to have like big groups of people, but kind of avoid that intimate circle, or even in the intimate circles, I like would avoid certain levels of vulnerability. And I'm still working on this stuff now. I'm like, I really don't want like a huge circle of superficial relationships anymore. I want that tight-knit community that I know like we see each other, we hear each other, we know each other, we're there for each other. And that requires a lot of vulnerability. That requires a lot of not masking and allowing yourself to be seen, allowing that truth to be present, allowing the heart to be open, especially in the moments where that feels the most difficult. So right now, where I'm at in my life is like that community is the most important of really creating that inner circle and then allowing it to expand from there. Um, which really all the layers are important. Like here in this space right now, there's four of us living in the home, and there was just recently nine of us living here because there were five live-in work trading volunteers. And that was a beautiful community experience. We had meals together, we shared space. Um, there wasn't always as much intimacy on that same level of like that inner circle, but it was like, wow, we're like living in symbiosis. We're actually physically living in the same space and we're sharing work and we're sharing food and meals and community. And I would really like to establish that more, um, kind of outside of work, but just like, or just establish it with some of my own conscious values, like a community that kind of shares more space, whether that's living on the same land or not, but just like lives life together more often. That kind of feels like that like next layer for me. And then beyond that one, there's just like community can get so vast. Like I have my community online, which I adore and love, and I'm so grateful for the amount of people that I have connections with through social media has blown my mind. The amount of people I've gotten to connect with in person and bring them into closer community because they found me on social media was like, what? Like we just didn't know each other and then you were scrolling and clicked on an account and now we're like here face to face and get to have friendship and sisterhood or um just that more intimate community. That's amazed me in so many ways. So I want to build that more, especially for like when I travel and um, go to different places to have that more expanded community aspect where maybe we're not face to face all the time. Maybe there's flows where we have more intimate connections, but then we're living in different places and we get to allow that distance and then we come back together and there's that more intimacy again. Um, yeah, it's so cool to like see the different levels and flow within them. And right now, I'm really rooted in cultivating a home space. So moving to Florida, it feels like a sustainable place for me to be living and like connecting with local community, face-to-face interactions. We talked about that when you were here, of like how often in this society we can sit with someone face to face and be on our phone talking to someone else. And it's like
Mm.
we're missing that intimacy with the person right in front of us because how many of these vast connections have surfaced or become so like accessible that it takes us away from that more intimacy. So I'm really rooting into that right now and attracting it more and more into my life.
Yeah, I think a number of us are right now. One of the things that I really got out of the visit down in Florida and interviewing people and going to all these different communities that Stephen and I went to was really getting to experience what that coming together with people is all about, and without the cell phones, without the
Hmm.
outside distractions and everything, really just so present in that moment. And one of the things that Stephen and I did is we went to a 12 tribes, um, and we went to a dinner over there. They host a dinner, I think, once a week. And so we were able to go to that, and they were so welcoming, so inviting. The food comes from their land. It was just, it was such a wonderful experience, and they so interacted. They so much wanted to know what your life was like, or your life is even like then. Well, tell
Yeah.
us about this, and what do you think about this, and all. It was such wonderful conversation that is lacking so much in today's world.
Hmm.
uh, it was, and every community that I went to, some were really small communities and some were bigger communities, but in every one of them, it was a really genuine connecting
Yeah.
and seeing the things that we share, that we both resonated with, or we all resonated with at that moment, and all, and just really being in that moment.
Mm.
Uh, it was so that when I came home, I felt like home today. It felt like, oh, I had to cook. I'm planting stuff.
Yeah.
I'm cooking stuff. I felt like a little homemaker all of a sudden. I'm preparing my home for something, it was so interesting,
Yeah.
which led me to think about the Wisdom Heart Retreat House, when that
Mm.
gets started and everything, and wanting to do the same thing, having at least one day a week where we invite anybody that wants to come in and sit with us at dinner. They just call
Yeah.
ahead so they know how many people are coming, and you just develop this community that way. I mean, I met so many wonderful people and all that I'm staying in touch with now,
Mm.
because of the experience on coming down there and all. I liked it a lot,
That's
but
amazing. That sounds
yeah,
so beautiful. Yeah, and I think it's like important to emphasize what you just said at the end of like technology can be a way to stay in touch with people. It can also be a way to connect people, but it shouldn't be our main source of connection because there is such an element that it lacks that face-to-face presence. Like you can access certain things. Like we get to have this conversation because of technology, and that's amazing because like I want to have more closeness with you even though we're far away. And we can't let that take us away from the people who actually are in front of us or where we are at that time in those local spaces, in the physical spaces. So I think it's important to remember that for myself, but like for everyone of tuning back into like what's around us.
yeah, because what I'm seeing is, yeah, I think it's really going to be important for the future. And I don't know how you see this or not, because I do want to touch on stewardship and service,
Mm,
to humanity for a minute. And this kind of goes into that. Um, is that we need to bring communities together, local communities together, because we may need to depend on our community to sustain us and keep us
yeah.
thriving in a world that's shifting so drastically right now. We may go through a period of time where people, if they don't have a community that they can count on, may struggle
Hmm.
with food, they might struggle with water, they might struggle with emotional well-being in all areas. If you're left on your own and you don't have a community that you can count on, that might be a rough road for a little while. And I think building the communities, and getting back in touch with nature and growing your own food, and having other people in your community growing different types of food, so nobody's responsible for growing everything. um,
Yeah.
it's just a good feeling, and a way to really get connected, on a really local level. And that's what one of the things that Steve and I are trying to do is help people how to get connected on a local level. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that's the direction that we're going on. So what do you think about stewardship and service to humanity? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, so I love how much this does tie in because stewardship for me is like a specific channel of my overall business and brand. And within my business, the stewardship is like pet care and taking care of animals because animals are my heart and soul, my love and light. They're such a passion of mine. Um, but I've recently had a calling towards children, and I'm like, okay, I can do some childcare. I was a nanny for a bit, and I raised this infant from 0 to 8 months old. And I was like, oh my God, I just raised this child. Like, actually, I was there 45 hours a week from when he woke up from when he went to sleep. And I was like, I actually just raised this child. Like, I was there more than his parents were. And caring for another being like that has really sparked my heart to crave that again, to be able to steward um, life and steward nourishment for other beings, whether that's animals or children. But then stewardship for me also comes into like stewarding spaces and stewarding communities. I just love the word stewardship. You can steward so many different things. Um, and stewarding businesses. And within my business, when I started it, or last year, I first started a pet care business. It was supernatural, and I was also doing the nannying alongside that at some point. Um, and then I got into a lot of coaching work and healing work, which was all online. And it was really impactful to be able to help people heal and completely change their freaking lives. And something about it didn't resonate. And I went on a long journey and went down a lot of different paths to try and figure out what that was. Coming to Florida, I've realized that I have, or I am craving that local community, that local connection so much that I don't want my services to be at least solely online. They can still be online. There can still be that connection. We can still utilize technology because we chose to come to this earth at a time where we have these technological advancements. So why not utilize those? But having my business rooted in that was making me feel like I was lacking something. And I've realized now that it is that local care, that local stewardship, and serving people who are literally my neighbors, and that I can go into town or drive 5 minutes away and I can see them, having relationships, friendships where I can just drive to their house um, on a Tuesday evening because I want to hang out. Like having that ease and accessibility with local community and serving the people who are living in the same or similar environment to me feels so much more rewarding for me at this time. And I've never really been drawn to local service like that, at least in my hometown, which is where I just left in Maryland. And I realized now in Florida, because I had such a comfort being there, that like that was just the place I grew up. And since I didn't grow up involved in my local community that way, it didn't feel like something that I could just change in the same environment. So I didn't feel called to like go to local hangouts or this and that. I always had an excuse for why that didn't exist there. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on locally? How can I serve? How can I volunteer? How can I create connections with this community and, trade them some kale for some chicken eggs and like we can all just support each other. And I've been getting into like local politics, which baffles my mind. I never thought I'd be into that. I'm like, I need to go to the political meetings. Like, let me learn what's going on a local level. Like, so many things have been blossoming here in relation to local living and serving on that level. And again, coming back to like the stewardship, I feel so excited to be able to offer my services in a local environment, in this community, knowing that I'm committed to be here for a certain amount of time, as opposed to like the nomad life I was living, where it's like, oh yeah, like you can do my stuff online and I'm going to be leaving this city, state, country, whatever, in a couple weeks or in a couple months. And I'm going to be leaving and I'm going to be leaving and I'm going to be leaving. But now I'm like, I'm here. I'm going to offer you my services, or I'm just going to support you, or I'm going to volunteer. And I'm here to be around for a bit. And we get to build those relationships on that level. It feels really rewarding on a deeper soul level than I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For me, it was seeing people locally through Berkeley Springs Healing Center
Mhm.
in West Virginia. Uh, that was just such a wonderful experience and all. But then also having online clients as well. And now that the healing center, the building has been sold, we don't have that access anymore. So now my
Yeah.
business is mostly online now, and I do miss that connection. The
Hmm.
friendships that I made during that time of being up there, it's really different now, and I think that's probably why I'm traveling so much and meeting new
Hmm.
communities and bringing people together, like because I could see the value of it, how important that was to really physically connect with other people, and I
Yeah.
have some some really great clients online, and I have connected with them personally as well. But I also have clients that I've never connected with personally, and they're wonderful clients and all. But there's just that missing piece there that you just don't get when you do things online. And I'm grateful for being able to do my clients, working with them through Zoom and things like that. I mean, it's a wonderful way to be able to work with people, but it's not the end all of all of
Yeah.
anything. So you
Yeah.
need the human connection as well. So I think that was well put. So are
Mm.
there any last things that you want to express before we bring this to a close?
I feel like so much of what I needed to say came out, even though I didn't know I needed to say it. So you asked really good questions. Um, I'm super grateful for that. Um, okay, I thought of something. I was like, let me just wait and see if anything wants to surface. For me, a lot of my journey has been figuring out what my journey is. And a big aspect of that has been navigating the aspect of my multifaceted self. So, as I mentioned before, I have so many interests, I have so many channels, and I've kind of used my Gemini label to explain that. And yet, there's a part of me that's like, you could use any label to explain why we are the way that we are. But I think that a lot of people are multifaceted, regardless of their zodiac, regardless of whatever label you use. I don't think everyone is. I think there are people who really do like get enjoyment out of like kind of sticking down one road. And I'm not that, so I can't like logically conceptualize it, but that's beautiful for them. This is for the people who aren't on that path, who have their energy in so many different places or just so many different things light them up. Since being in like different coaching containers or just in so many different communities and societies, I've had so many people tell me that you gotta pick one thing or you gotta like niche down, and it's on all the different layers too. Like in business, you gotta niche down, but it's like in your whole life, you gotta niche down. And it's like for me, every layer is multifaceted. And I've tried to do the niche, or I've tried to like do the single commitment, and it just drives me bonkers. And I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Why can't I just do the one thing? And I do want to like disclaimer here that there is a fine line and we can definitely spread ourselves too thin. So that's where you got to like check yourself and make sure that you're not self-sabotaging by going in too many different directions. But if you can kind of keep that awareness, I fully believe and support the fact that being a multifaceted human being or a spiritual being in a human body is such a beautiful truth, and it's so possible, and it's so rewarding because you actually can be all the things. You actually can do all the things. And accepting that for myself has been like so many breakthroughs. I'm like, oh my God, I actually can be an artist and a healer and a steward and I don't even know, like so many things. And I don't have to put myself in a box and choose one and then feel so lost because I'm not embodying who I am. So I just want to support everyone in that and myself and you because I know you're multifaceted.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
multidimensional beings, and we can
yeah,
step into any timeline that we choose to step into. Not everybody realizes that right now, and again, there's no judgments on anybody. Everybody is on their experience that they choose to be on in any
yeah,
timeline, and that's perfectly fine. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's funny because every generation has their belief on how their children should live their life. Like
hmm
mine was, my parents thought it was that time period where you got a job and you kept that job for your whole life, and then you
hmm
retired at 65, and then you croaked at 68 or something, you know. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to work for me.
Uh-uh.
I have done so many different things. I tried the corporate world for about 5 years. I said, you know what? This is not me. It is stifling. I could not
Yeah.
imagine going into the same place day in and day out for 30, 40, 50 years, you know.
Mm-mm.
And for
I
those that
couldn't
like
do
to
it.
do that, then that's great.
Yeah.
That's them. You know, that just wasn't me. And I'm a Cancer, so I'm not a Gemini.
Yeah. It's not a Gemini thing. It's just a human thing.
Yeah. So I have to be doing something different all the time, and that's what feeds me. That's what keeps me open to new avenues to explore and new ways to express my service to humanity. So yeah, I understand completely about what you're talking about.
Yeah. It goes back to that adaptability that we talked about. Like humans need change. I mean, evolution is change. Like the only certainty in life is uncertainty. And so if we actually embody that and allow ourselves to be these multidimensional, multifaceted beings, we access a level of vibration and consciousness that's just like surrendering to that process of change and evolution. And
Hmm. Yeah, you don't realize you can fly until you jump off the cliff. That's a metaphorical statement. I'm not going to anybody jump off of a
don't do
cliff, but unless you surrender and trust and surrender to that, then you know, it's not until you actually take that action that you realize, oh, I really can do this.
yeah.
Wow, I can fly.
Yep.
I'm Peter Pan. So how can people reach out to you?
Yay. So main way is Instagram. That's my main platform. My username is at ourearthwarrior, which is also my username on Facebook and like all the social medias. Um, Connect with me there. You can send me DMs. I love to chat with people there. I chat with everyone on my Instagram. My DMs are always open. So if you have any questions or just want to have a conversation, would love to talk. And then I have a website too at ourearthwarrior.com. Super excited about that. I actually just finished it. I've been working on it for like a year. So um, I love that that's a thing now, and I get to keep adapting and adding my services on there. So you can just directly book with things, um, doing a lot of the local work. So if anyone's in Hernando County, Florida, definitely come connect at our permaculture farm. Um, are open to the public for visitors, also for volunteers. So that would be super cool to meet some local people or even traveling people who are in the area. It's like north of Tampa. Um, and then, yeah, I have a podcast of my own. It's on my website and Instagram. Currently in the transition of changing the name, so I'm not going to give a name right now in case I change it. Rebranding that, which is exciting. Which I'd also love to have you, Grace, on my podcast too. So we'll have to talk about that. Um, yeah, I think those are the main things. Instagram, website. You can kind of find everything through those two places.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Excellent. We'll make sure we link those somewhere in there.
Yeah.
All right, one last question for you.
Ooh.
What is the meaning of life for you?
Oh my gosh. What the heck? We gotta do a whole nother podcast for that. Um, hmm. I'm observing what my mind is saying, but I want to sit with it for a moment. Okay. The answer that I've been coming up with most recently in my life, which has felt so resonant, I feel like I've like cracked my life purpose, is evolution. Like if I were to answer it in one word, it would be evolution. And there's so many layers to that that could get so deep. I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries and I work with nature and have been on the healing journey. And really, what we're doing throughout all of this is growing and evolving and just expanding to the next level. Like, what are we doing? We love more in order to raise our vibration. That's like spiritual evolution, or the natural world is adapting all the freaking time. I mean, these nature documentaries, they're insane the way nature adapts so quickly and so phenomenally in ways that, like, if we did that as humans, I don't know where we'd be. But the purpose of that is because it just keeps evolving. There's no like end purpose to evolution that I know of, unless I'm missing something. I feel like you might know an answer to that. Um, it's just like the process of being and then evolving through being. And yeah, that's just felt so resonant. There's like our conscious evolution, our spiritual evolution, there's the natural world evolving, there's our vibrational evolution of getting to higher levels so that we're like not in the physical evolution anymore. Um, yeah, that's what I would put that at. And then again, of course, like the pillars, like love and connection and passion and figuring out our purpose in order to move evolution forward for the future, for ourselves, and then for all the future generations and just the future of evolution.
Right, good answer. Good answer. I like it a lot. This has been so much fun. I've really, really enjoyed our conversations that we've had today, and I know other people will enjoy listening to it as well. So thank you so much for being on today and sharing all your wisdom and insights, little bits and pieces of the insights into your life experience. I know it'll help people. That's why I wanted to interview you. And
Mm.
I look forward to bringing you on again because I have a feeling that we have a whole lot more yet that we can discover.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. It has raised my vibration from today, and I'll hold that vibration moving forward. And um, excited to have you on my podcast and then show up again here because, yeah, we got so much to talk about, so much to share.
We definitely do. So
Mm.
I'm Grace Joy with Wisdom Heart Foundation, and you can reach us at Wisdom Heart Connections. I think that is our YouTube channel, and then our Instagram channel is Berkeley Springs Healing Center and Wisdom Heart Foundation, our Instagram channels, and wisdomheartfoundation.org. There's a lot of ways to reach us. So just reach out. You'll be able to find us. I just put out a YouTube video yesterday on Bach Towers and nature
Mm,
connection, which was my experience as we were at Bach Towers in Lake Wales, Florida. Really being taken into the whole tree. I don't know if I explained this to you or not. Anyway, taken into the tree down, taken into the root system, and finding out how fast information moves beneath the surface of the earth and how
mhm.
exciting that was. So that's a really good video to check out and get a whole
And your
new perspective.
meditation.
And the
Gotta tell,
meditations,
yeah, listen to the meditation, releasing the stories. It's a good one. It's a good one to listen to
releasing,
every
yeah,
day.
releasing and creating is a wonderful meditation to be done at nighttime. It with
Mhm.
ease and grace, you're able to release all past traumas. Just take the wisdom from the story, leave the story behind because you can't take the story with you into the higher vibrational frequencies, but you can take the wisdom that you gain from the stories. So it's a wonderful meditation. It's meant to put you to sleep. So we
Mhm.
bypass that analytical brain of ours and stop analyzing the words, but just getting into the feeling of the energy and the vibration of the message itself as it guides you through releasing past traumas, ancestral traumas, and stories that we came in with, moving us into the present moment, and from there, learning how to create our future, the world that you really want to live in. So
Yeah, I
it's
love it.
exciting. Love it. I love it too. So
Hmm.
namaste. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come on and share everything, all the wisdom that you have. Well, not all
Yeah.
the wisdom that you have, but a good part.
A little piece.
Okay, little piece.
Thank you.